Hey everybody, KC here. So this is not a story in which you're going to be familiar with the particulars, unless of course you're from the New York metropolitan area. But I think you're probably going to be familiar with some of the parameters of disruption. So on Monday, it was announced that WCBS News Radio 880, an all-news station for more than 6 decades, is basically going to be no more. Instead, ESPN Radio, it's going to be taking over its position on the dial, which now means that the New York metropolitan area is going to have one all-news station. WINS 1010 Wins is going to be all news. And we're going to have two major all sports stations, WFAN, which sort of pioneered the format in 1987, and now ESPN Radio at 880 on the dial. FAN carries Yankees games, and now the new ESPN Radio at 880 is going to have all the Mets games, which is sort of the way it was. Basically, WCBS has been all news all the time, except for Mets games. Okay, and ESPN is going to continue the practice of having the Mets games at 880. The details of why this is all happening are sort of unimportant to the story, except to say that ESPN has been at 1050 on the dial for a long time, and they wanted to be lower on the dial. And boy, dial, there's an outmoded term right there, right? They wanted to be lower on the dial so it would have a stronger signal, and it made more economic sense for the company that had the 880 on the dial as an all news format. It frankly made more economic sense for them to lease it out to ESPN than to maintain its all news format. And, really didn't matter because they also own WINS Wins. So they're going to still have all news. But the thing is that WCBS News Radio 88 is it's an institution. Traffic together and weather on the 8s, sports at 15 and 45 minutes after the hour, business news at 25 and 35 after the hour. For 6 decades, you could pretty much set your watch by this stuff. My mother used to listen to it all the time. Mrs. Content Guy listens to it every morning when she gets up. Back in the day, Walter Cronkite had a 5-minute commentary in the afternoon, always on WCBS Radio. So did Dan Rather later on. And Charles Osgood had his Osgood files on several times a day, many of them in rhyme or doggerel. But in so many ways, and for so many of us, it's become more of a memory of the past than relevant to our present. Listen, I only listen to the signal for Mets games. I need traffic. I use Waze, which is going to tell me about traffic where I am at the moment, not for the general metropolitan area. And for news and business updates and sports, well, there are about 1,000 other places where I can get my information. I can find out what I need to know, when I need to know it, where I want to know it. That's just the way it is. And if I want in-depth discussions on topics that are interesting to me or that I want to know more about, well, there's, 1,000 or so podcasts out there that I can access and listen to in the car. Listen, I really feel bad about this because it is such an institution and a lot of people are likely to lose their jobs. And a lot of people like Mrs. Content Guy are going to have their routines upset. But the fact of the matter is that the headwinds of reality, economic and journalistic, technological and cultural, they all caught up with WCBS News Radio 880. The business lesson is clear, right? Headwinds are bad. Tailwinds are good. And if we're not paying attention, and if we don't embrace opportunity and focus on maintaining a high level of relevance and resonance, and we try to always have the wind at our back, well, our signal's likely to fade too. That's what's on my mind this morning. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.